So we got Israel now traveling back to the promised land. He's no longer Jacob, he's Israel. He might be referred to Jacob at some time, when you say the Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that was kind of the line of the patriarchs. But he's got a name change because he's wrestled with God, he's striven with God, and he's prevailed, and things have changed. Well, he's traveling back, and he gets his 12th son at this point. So we're going to look at Genesis 35, starting verse 16. It says, "Then they journeyed from Bethel." Bethel's important, the house of God. And when they were still some distance to go to Ephrath. Ephrath is another name for Bethlehem, or the area of Bethlehem. Rachel began to give birth, and she suffered severe labor. So they're traveling back to the promised land. They're in part of it now. They're in the land. They're in the area of Ephrath, which is Bethlehem. And Rachel goes into labor with, Israel's 12th son. And it came about that when she was in severe labor, that the midwife said to her, "Do not fear, for now you have another son." And that's verse 17 of 35, verse 18. "And it came about as her soul was departing, for she died, that she named him Ben-Oni, but his father named him Benjamin." Well, Ben-Oni or Ben-Ani, or don't take my pronunciation for any of these things, because although I've read them many times, I've not really looked at pronunciation. So don't say, well, this is the way it's said because Ed said it, because I don't know. I'm clueless on a lot of this stuff. But anyway, what Rachel named him means the son of my sorrow. And what Israel named him means the son of my right hand. Now, even in this, I think it's an incredible picture, and we'll look at a little bit more as it comes up here, an incredible picture of what's to come, of a birth that happened right in this same vicinity, right in the same place. Much later is where I believe, Jesus was born, in the Bethlehem area, in Ephrath, in this area. And we'll see some other specifics here that I think make it even clearer. And I think Jesus fulfills both of these in a strange way: the son of my sorrow and the son of my right hand. And so we see even in this picture, and as we go through Genesis, and if you know these stories, it brings so much more richness into the fulfillment of what happened when Jesus came into this world. It says in verse 19, "So Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrath," that is Bethlehem. "And Jacob set up a pillar over her grave," that is the pillar of Rachel's grave to this day. "Then Israel journeyed on and pitched his tent beyond the Tower of Ader." Now, the Tower of Ader is in some of the places called Migdal Ader, or the Tower of the Flock. And it's interesting that this is brought up at this place. And I think this is once, strangely, this birth of the son of my sorrow and the son of my right hand, this one's that is the fulfillment, this 12th son, this precious son. Rachel was looking for another child, finally has his second son. She dies giving birth to him. Amazing. And they set up camp here at the Tower of the Flock, or Migdal Ader, or the Tower of Ader. And as we look on, there's a prophecy in the book of Micah, a couple of prophecies, but a long one that's regarded as the ones that tell us where the Messiah would be born and tell us something about the Messiah. In Micah 5:2, most of you, if you've studied the Bible some or been around for Christmas presentation, a lot of people will bring in the Micah 5:2 prophecy, but it says, "But as for you, Bethlehem, Ephrathah," there it is, Ephrath, Bethlehem, the same place. It says, "Too little to be among the clans of Judah. From you will go forth for me to be the ruler in Israel. His goings forth are from long ago, from the days of eternity." He's saying, here's the prophecy that, like the kings that came from the east, they knew where Jesus would be born, the Messiah would be born in Bethlehem because of this prophecy. Because it's the one whose goings forth are from long ago, from the days of eternity. So one is being born who's eternal. He's always been, but now he's being born somehow into this earth, a strange message. And there's a message later on in Micah 5, which is for a future thing we'll look at, down the road if we get there, if I can do this thing for that long. But it's talking about the end of the age, I believe, when it says that this one who was born in Bethlehem will eventually defeat the Assyrian when he invades the land. And I think this Assyrian that invades the land is talking about the future one we call the man of lawlessness, or perhaps the Antichrist, we refer to him that kind of thing. I think he's given some identity here as the Assyrian that invades the land, and it actually says this one born in Bethlehem is he's gonna take him out. He's gonna root him out of this place. So we see that this prophecy, we were looking in Genesis, and seeing that Rachel had this baby, had Benjamin, the son of my sorrow, the son of my right hand, right by Bethlehem Ephratah, right by the Tower of Eder. If we go back in Micah to chapter 4 and verse 8, it says, "As for you, Tower of the flock, Migdal Eder, hill of the daughter of Zion, to you will come, even the former dominion will come, the kingdom of the daughter of Jerusalem." And I really believe there was a man named Alfred Edersheim, and he wrote some commentaries on the Bible and wrote a lot of neat little things. And he's the first one I know of in our era, which I'm saying that's the last 200 years, brought in the idea that Migdal Eder was possibly the very birthplace of Jesus. That the depiction we get of him in a barn with a bunch of cows and sheep and goats and stuff really isn't the place, but this Tower of the flock, Migdal Eder. Because what Migdal Eder became, in its prophet, it's talked about in Genesis, it's talked about in Micah. What it became during the time of Jesus is it was a place where the sheep were raised that were used for temple sacrifice. And the sheep that were raised in the Tower of the flock, that were born in the Tower of the flock, they were raised there, and they were specifically used for the sacrifice in the temple in Jerusalem. And what would happen is when these little sheep were born is that they would be wrapped in cloths, swaddling clothes. They'd be wrapped in swaddling clothes, these little baby sheep, because if the sheep was born and he flails all around and he injures himself, then he no longer qualifies as a perfect lamb for a sacrifice at the temple in Jerusalem. So they wrapped him so they couldn't flail around and injure themselves. And so when we see the angels appearing to the shepherds, interesting, in the New Testament, angels appear and give an announcement to shepherds that the Messiah has been born for you, and this will be a sign for you. You'll find a baby wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger. And I always used to wonder, well, how did they know where to go? But if these were the shepherds that were in the field caring for the sheep that were going to be used for sacrifice, and they were the shepherds that actually came from Migdal Eder, they knew this would be a sign to them. You'll find a baby wrapped in swaddling clothes. Because, wow, this baby is one that's got to be preserved and kept perfect. And he's being kept perfect for a sacrifice. And just like those sheep that were born in that place. So, as we look through the book of Genesis, it's amazing how many of these different foundational things are set and how they're spoken about. And we find the Bible becomes so much richer and so much fuller if we have an understanding of the history of some of these things. And especially when we look at this, the birthplace of Bethlehem and the son of my sorrow and the son of my right hand being at, they camped there right past Ephrath at Migdal Eder, at the Tower of the Flock, and just the richness that comes with that in later years. And perhaps Jesus wasn't born in Migdal Eder, but it just seems like it. It seems like it's just that perfect picture that is spoken about here in Micah, that is foreshadowed in the book of Genesis, and that if you really understand and you see these shadows and these pictures, that you're going to understand the magnitude of what it was that this one would come. He would be one that would be born, that would be this beloved son, a son of sorrow, a son of right hand, a son of power, but also a sacrifice lamb born in the place known for sacrifice lambs,